Hello again. Welcome to the InScope podcast. My name is John Scott. I'm one of the co-founders over at ScopeStack, where we solve all your IT services scoping problems, all of them. Back by popular demand, I have Scott Millwood. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Happy to.
Scott's been, one of those guys that has known the problem that we're trying to solve for a long time, leveraging his experience at Customer Effective and Hitachi and DataStream. Kind of been all over the place, doing some really innovative, awesome stuff. And so, we thought we'd have him back and kind of impart some more knowledge around, what's it like to scale a services business? Because again, that's something that you've had personal experience with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's been fun to be part of some successful services organizations and start them from zero and have an exit on that. So hopefully share a little bit of knowledge on the challenge of scaling up.
Yeah, and again, it's you made it look easy, but it's not easy, right? To scale a services business because you have people and you have all these different teams, and there's just a lot of complexity to it.
Absolutely, and everybody's goal isn't to scale up, right? I mean, sometimes you might find a founder entrepreneur that's happy at a million in revenue and making a decent living at it. Our goal was to build a large organization and exit to a large organization. And we knew to do that we had to have a plan for scale. Mm-hmm. And we had to have the ability to sort of take the principles out of the equation, right? We can't be important to the very end. We
mean the founders, the leaders of the organization.
Right. We have to be able to, from the early days, see ourselves as not important to the continuity of the company at some future point. So you have to kind of start with that end in mind of, hey, I need to be able to fire myself one day.
Yeah. And there's a lot of knowledge, right, between you and your co-founders, kind of collective heads. So I mean, where do you start? Do you just start writing it down? Do you, you have a 3-ring binder?
Right. 3-ring binder on that. I think one of the key things for us is one, recognition of the goal, right? Of where were we trying to go over 10 years?
You're setting the vision.
Setting the vision and committing to writing down that vision. We created in the first year, we created a 10-year plan. Where do we think where do we aspire to be in 10 years? And even if you don't get all the way there, if you get halfway there, will you be super happy with that? And we were, we didn't get all the way there. We got halfway there and it was like, oh, wow, that was still beyond kind of a typical growth story. Mm-hmm. The commitment to write that 10-year plan down and then re-up it every year, right? Mm-hmm. Just keep writing that plan. Frankly, it helped us with recruiting high quality people at a senior level because they saw that we were highly committed to growth, which, everybody benefits in their career by being part of an organization that's in growth mode. But they also saw that we had not a churn and burn mentality, that we were committed for the long run and that we would be part of the organization in a continuous basis to, whatever exit we may be able to.
I think it's 1 year to set that vision and continue to reiterate it, but it's another to execute and actually hit the goals. And,
absolutely.
And I would imagine that is one of the things that attracts really good people.
Yeah, absolutely. We could show to, our recruits, our iterations of our 10-year plan year over year and our results against that plan so that they, again, back to that concept of trust we talked about in a prior podcast is, do your employees trust that you can navigate the ship on this, trajectory of growth? And if you show those results year over year and share your results with your team.
Be transparent,
right?
Yep.
Just here it is. Yeah. This is how we did. This is where our challenges were. Here's how we overcame them. That helped to get higher quality people at lower pay because they were bought into the vision. They were bought into the mission of what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and all the upside that comes with that. With
all the upside that comes with it. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so typically when I think about scale, it's, I can't be detailed at what we do, or I'm going to have to compromise certain areas if I really want to grow this thing. Is that true, or
I don't think so. I mean, I think being uncompromising and paying attention to the details is part of the the culture. It's part of the fabric, is to be committed. Now, you can't do that yourself. And that's where the challenge comes, right? Is if it's me and my business partner and we're splitting duties, and in our organization, we started, me kind of selling and marketing and building early relationship. My business partner did operations delivery, and we were joined at the hip in a lot of ways. For the two of us to go do it, we could do that up to about $1.5 million in revenue. Just banging them out. Selling, delivering, keeping customers happy, reselling back into the base. But once you get to that point, there's just not enough hours in the day. So you have to start thinking about, well, how do I take what's in our heads and get it out of our heads and onto paper so that we can then transfer that knowledge into our next tier of leader. And bringing those people up to speed on that process meant a commitment to documenting our cookbook, so to speak, the recipe of how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think I was telling you, I heard this quote the other day, and it was, as a leader or executive in an organization, you have to get to a point, which is what you were just talking about you not being the one to put out all the fires, but you need to start building these fire stations, right? Subject matter experts and groups that can be equipped and enabled to go out and solve problems without you being involved.
Absolutely. Empowering the next level of leader to make decisions, particularly as it relates to customer sat, right? Is that becomes a little bit of a culture mantra to take care of the customer regardless of the impact and the cost. Obviously, there's discussion about that, but you don't want to hamstring your lieutenants in every decision to have to wait on me to come do it or to come ask a silly question. It's like, of course we're going to do that. Yes, that rework is on us. That has to be built into the culture and filtered down as far as possible. And again, that process documentation, helps. And we had a little bit of a benefit in that we came across this book early days called The E-Myth, Michael Gerber. Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs, have it's
one of those top 10 books as an entrepreneur that you're supposed to read.
It's like philosophy, right? It's like, this is the way. And one of the concepts there was building the franchise. And if you think about your services organization like a McDonald's, which has, the 3-ring binder of, how to make a shake, how to serve fries.
You said cookbook at McDonald's and recipe, and I'm just hungry now at this point.
So, the goal was to have that book to hand off to the team leaders and have them have the recipe on what to do when. And it's, the exercise of going through that, reading the book, got to the point of like everybody that came on the team, just read the E-Myth and you'll understand what we're doing. They're reading this book about, bakeries and bake shops and, all that. It's like, they started to get it later. But everybody gets bought into documentation of process and documentation of how we do what we do. And you then have to kind of jawbone it though, John, it's one thing to write it down, but then you have to kind of live by it and talk about it. And so it became a bit of a standing joke in the organization that, for the new guys would come on and they would ask this question. It's like, read the book, and everybody else. Have to answer this. We knew it was catching on when even, the newest hires would turn around to the brand new hire and a stupid question would be asked and they would say, read the book. It's page 47. Don't ask that question. There's other important things to talk about, but that documentation we knew and that mentality we knew was sticking when we started to get that kind of, banter around the culture.
Oh yeah. And y'all actually wrote a book, right?
We wrote a book, right?
You actually wrote your own book.
Internal book. It wasn't published, but it was the Customer Effective Book of Stuff. And I've shared it with you.
Yes.
It's very original. I've shared that with numerous other, entrepreneurs and have seen a lot of those concepts picked up and run with.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, you start talking about this franchise model and these recipes. We've talked about just, the importance of patterns and trying to identify the patterns in your business. Yeah. So like, how does identifying that and maybe some examples on how you put that into place, if that makes sense. Because I know you had the 4D methodology and how you deliver services.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I mean, as it relates to scope stack, and one of the things I find so, attractive and beautiful about your approach and product is that's the core of documented repeatability and trust, right? Is here's a thing that's central to the way we deliver success to customers that we feel so strongly about that we're going to invest in implementation of scope stack, and we're going to put all of the right documentation in there, all of the right
steps and services
and
patterns.
The patterns and recipes. We're going to get that nailed down. And to me, that's the beginning of standardizing your methodology, which then if you take that concept and just go a little bit further with it and say, well, what else should we document? Well, why don't we put down our cultural values? Why don't we document that? Why don't we document the selling process that leads to the transition into the delivery process? Let's make sure that the selling process is as well documented and as well executed in a CRM or something that is repeatable that leads to that. And then you go beyond there to what else? What else haven't we covered? And
it's all about getting it out of
get
people's
it out of your head
silos
and get it down into something that's digital, that is reusable, that other people can get without having to have the conversation with you or ask the dumb questions every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. So to the franchise piece, so y'all had this idea of, okay, we want to have a franchise type model, right? I mean, can you kind of elaborate on what goes into that, why you were doing it?
Yeah. So
just in general,
the main thing was for us to be able to, reach higher goals with a bigger team, right? To get to repeatable processes with customers, so we get them referenceable faster, more repeatable revenue with those customers as a result. But a lot of that was also if at some point we want to sell, and we knew at some point we want to exit, then how do we ensure that the lieutenant team can continue forward uninterrupted? And how can we ensure that the buying organization is getting a great product when they buy our company, right?
Yep.
Here's how we do everything that we have talked about. So literally during our courting process with Hitachi, pre-acquisition through diligence, even before diligence, we shared our methodologies. We shared the customer effective book of stuff. And the impression to them was a wow. Because as a much smaller organization, we had our act together even more than their delivery organization.
I think that's a great point, though, because like you think about process and all these things, you think about large organizations. It's not just a large organization thing, is it?
No,
I mean, the importance of
absolutely not. No, I mean, it to me is, when you get to that established process and you actually have, your process, I'll say, ironed out. How you're going to do it, what really works. The repeatability of it comes down to writing it down, right? And being able to get everybody singing from the same song sheet about what it is you do. So it's probably more critical in a smaller organization that's trying to scale than a large organization that's growing at 10% year over year. They may be delivering, poorly and growing at a slow rate, but they've also already achieved some level of scale.
Well, and that's what we talk to some of these, smaller organizations. We say, hey, this problem that you have right now is just going to get more painful. All right, you mentioned pain chain,
right?
Like the more people you add, the more complexity of variability you're going to add to your business. So I think, just to reiterate, this is not a large business thing. It should be a small business thing if you really want to grow and scale.
Absolutely.
I mean, you think about, I'll mention another restaurant. I mean, you think about Chick-fil-A, right? And going through their drive-through and just the experience, you can see all this process just from the outside. I can imagine all the stuff on the inside.
Unbelievable, right? I mean, they're the prototypical franchise that does everything right. It's down to the cultural mandate of it's my pleasure.
Sure.
Right? I mean, and if there's anything that you would strive to do in a services organization is to be as standardized as they are, because the quality of the deliverable compared to even other franchises that document it, but they don't live it, right?
Yep.
To me, Chick-fil-A has gotten the process documentation right, but more importantly, they've inculcated their culture with that process and how important it is to follow the process. Otherwise, the person that you bump into at the door that says, "It's my pleasure to hold the door open," they wouldn't be doing that. That's not in the manual,
I have a buddy of mine that's an operator for a Chick-fil-A franchise, and it's always my goal to get him to say it's my pleasure, just no matter what.
No matter what.
And I'll get it most of the time because it is so ingrained in their culture, and he says it so often throughout the day.
Listen, you can't imagine how often I've used the Chick-fil-A example. I mean, part of it is we're down south and we love Chick-fil-A, period. Sure. But when you see how well they do it, you just have to admire it. And I'll tell a little bit of a story about post-acquisition, how what you did gets somewhat diluted when it goes and gets absorbed into a large organization. And so our processes were really tight, culturally very tight. And then when we sold, that got absorbed into a large organization. It got diluted. And I would use the example back to a lot of the folks that were still part of the team that they're still selling a chicken sandwich, but it's not the same exact recipe. So it doesn't taste quite as good. You got to follow the recipe if you want it to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult, and so, I think going back to just the services side and scaling and building these franchises, I mean, and again, I don't know if this was actually in your book, but you even went through and created an ideal statement of work format.
Absolutely.
You created an ideal work breakdown structure. Yeah. I think that attention to detail is probably what sets you all apart for sure. And
absolutely,
give you an advantage.
And selfishly, having that example set the bar high for a consulting director to know this is what's expected, but it also gave us that example to go with to a prospect and say, this is what we're going to deliver to you. Right? This is how we're going to do it. We're not going to do it.
We're not making it up this time.
We're not making it up on day one, and we're not going to do it day one. We've got to get to power and have some discussion with your executives about the project before we go build this. But recognize that when we bring it to you, it's going to be at this level. It's going to be at this level of the standard is going to be set at this level.
Mm-hmm. So, what else about just the documentation, the process, and scaling? I mean, so again, in terms of scaling, we talked about documenting the process, even document templates. What other pieces kind of roll into?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we haven't talked about that I think is very important in a systems integration, consulting, delivery, services organization is motivations and the goals of the individuals. One of the things I think we did that was unique was to tie everybody's compensation structure into growth, so that even the development team had a variable component of their compensation. Consulting directors, a larger variable part of their compensation. Obviously, sales, a much larger variable. But the variable tie-in was an alignment so that as, I'm talking about a 10-year vision, 10-year growth plan, which we would break down into, next year's growth plan is 30% year over year, et cetera, et cetera. That 30% would translate back into everybody's compensation structure so that they were able to make more when they delivered on growth, particularly growth that didn't require rework and was working at a high utilization rate. So I think that attention to detail down to the comp level, which again, in a smaller organization, you can tweak that year to year, but the concept of variable is extremely important if you want to drive growth. And so I come back to the concept earlier, like if you're happy at $1 million or $1.5 million, it's kind of a lifestyle business, great. You can pay everybody a flat salary, doesn't matter. But if you're driving to growth and you want to do 30, 40% growth year over year, which we found to be kind of the sweet spot of services teams where you don't get speed wobbles. You're hiring a lot of people, but you're not, 100% year over year in a services team, you're going to have speed wobbles. You're going to be off the track, in the ditch. Bad things will happen. 30, 40%. So if you said this is the goal and we can hit that without blowing ourselves up, well, what makes the individual contributor, consultant contribute to that goal, right? Well, if their variable pay is, say, 15% of their total comp, and that 15% is tied to hitting 20% year over year growth, right? Then they win.
Right.
So they're incented to see their own personal output grow that level, their team's level, grow to that level. So a lot of time and attention to motivation schemes.
Yeah, I mean, those were always the questions I would ask of my leadership team, and what kind of impact am I making on the business?
Right.
Is what we're doing working? And so I think, from an individual contributor standpoint, manager level, even, you want to know those things. You want to know how you're growing the business, and you also want to know how much money you're going to take from it at the end of the day.
Yeah. In fact, if I can make 20% more by driving my utilization up to 85% or whatever your thresholds are, fantastic. A lot of that comes back to the growth mindset, right? Is if you're thinking about scale, then you really have to preach growth mindset and across the team culturally that you are growing as an individual. There's a willful commitment to personal growth, that you're trying to help people achieve more in their personal lives and in their career capabilities and in their own skill base, right? It's just you're kind of embedding that into the way you think every single day.
Yeah, it's not just business growth; it's personal growth,
personal
it's team
growth,
right? It's all of it,
Yeah, not everybody's going to participate in your exit. It's like they're just not. I mean, they're not. Not everybody's going to have a significant equity chunk or whatever it may be. But if they're growing their career trajectory and they see that you're committed to helping them become better as a professional, you'll get their best every day.
Yeah. I mean, I think about just all the M&A activity in the IT channel space, and I think it's a really interesting perspective to hear, having gone through it yourself, the benefit and how documentation process can be something to your advantage as you're going through due diligence or an acquisition deal of some sort. So it's not just a do it so Scott and John can work less. It's do it so we're a better business as a whole, allows us to achieve the 10-year growth plan. Just all these, it just works together.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a large business thing only.
Right.
Right. So
yeah. Do it so you're a Chick-fil-A and not a Taco Bell.
I mean, both good food.
Both good food. But you're going to wait a half an hour at Taco Bell, and it's probably wrong.
That's true. And a churro. But anyway.
That's right.
I'm still hungry, apparently. So again, give us some what are one or two practical things that we like to, start wrapping up the show with, some advice that people can start using today, tomorrow to make a better services business.
My obvious one there is go read the E-Myth. It's like, no matter what kind of business you're in, if you're interested in scaling, if you're interested in being a better professional, you'll understand your role by reading the E-Myth. And so that's a good one. It's a good one. Go get that one done. The other is, to recognize the impact of culture. We talk a lot about the details and scoping and whatever it may be, but culture is the fabric, and you will have culture in a company.
It's a process lived out.
Whether you intentionally create culture or unintentionally create culture, you have a culture. And so as a leader, to become intentional about creating the culture is something that, and particularly as you get, larger and you have more people, you have to spend even more time kind of banging the drum on what's our culture about, to the point that it will drive you absolutely batty, that you're going to say things over and over so many times to reiterate it that it's going to feel ridiculous. But that's the only way that it permeates, so that, you use that concept that I love of creating fire stations. The fire stations are only created from leadership saying how many times, 20 times, how important it is for everybody to be able to have autonomy and make decisions to better serve the customer.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, a fire station example, they don't call, the fire chief or whatever to say, hey, can I go now? Right. Like
phone rings, you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll fix it.
You got to be quick to react.
Right. Don't call the mayor to ask if we should put this one out.
Yeah. Just do it.
Just do it.
Exactly. Well, Scott, thanks again, man, for coming on and just, again, imparting some wisdom that you've lived out and you've been there, you've done that. And so I think that's one of the great parts about, this podcast and some of the guests we have coming on is this is not theoretical, hypothetical stuff. This is like, tactical stuff that has been lived out and you've been burned by it, but you've also been very successful from it at the same time. So thank you for coming and
it's my pleasure
imparting all that on us. Again, I think, if anyone wants to reach out to you and find out more about what you're up to, LinkedIn. Best place to find you.
Spot. Yep.
All right, great. No more MySpace.
No more
MySpace.
Cutting
all right.
back.
Got it. Well, again, thank you all for joining us on the InScope podcast. My name is John Scott. And again, if you want to find out more about the other podcasts we've had and those guests, some great content out there, you can go to scopestack.io/podcast. And again, I would be remiss if I didn't offer a free ScopeStack plan for all of you out there listening. So please go out to scopestack.io/free, create a free ScopeStack account and really start experiencing the value of what we're doing here at ScopeStack. So again, Scott, thanks for joining us, man. And we'll catch everyone soon.